Hello, Seawolves, and welcome back to this edition of Eyewitness News. I'm Ava Shea. We begin tonight with a developing story out of Queens with our reporter, Sky Crabtree.
Ava, a tragic accident at LaGuardia Airport today, a runway collision, leaving 2 pilots dead and another 41 people injured. Surveillance video shows Air Canada Flight 8646 traveling more than 100 miles per hour before it collides with a fire truck, flipping the vehicle and sending it across a LaGuardia Airport runway amid a plume of smoke. Federal Aviation Administrator Brian Bedford says they will support the investigation in any way possible.
But we are committed to a full, transparent investigation. We will support the NTSB in any way possible. And again, we look forward to being able to take concrete actions to ensure something like this will never happen again.
We'll bring you more updates on the investigation as it rolls out. Ava?
Thank you, Sky. This week, the Supreme Court heard arguments in a case that could upend how mail-in ballots are processed on Election Day. The case deals with a Mississippi law that allows ballots postmarked by Election Day to be counted even if they were received up to 5 days after the election. With more on this, we have our correspondent, Miles Reese. Miles, what are Republicans arguing in this case?
Yeah, Ava, the Republican National Committee, with the backing of the Trump administration, says that Mississippi law and similar laws across 13 other states that allow mail-in votes to be counted after Election Day are unconstitutional and should be overturned. They argue that federal law is clear. If your ballot isn't in the hands of officials by the time the polls close on Election Day, it shouldn't be counted. President Trump has been a longtime critic of mail-in voting, however, claiming that it has led to mass voter fraud and citing that it is the reason for his electoral defeat to Joe Biden in the year 2020. Inside the courtroom, conservative justices leaned into arguments suggesting that grace periods for mail-in ballots erode confidence in election outcomes, while liberal justices and attorneys from the state of Mississippi have pointed out that there is no evidence of any large-scale fraud caused by these ballots.
Yes, and how might the SAVE Act and this case together affect voters who rely on these mail-in ballots?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk amongst the public and a lot of politicians about concerns on the several groups and demographics of Americans that this would impact. We have to remember the older generation who have had home births, who may not have traditional birth certificates, also people who have changes in their last names, and the percentage of Americans who don't even know where their birth certificates are. So those are the conversations that people are having, but as this is developing, we'll have more updates.
Yes, Miles, thank you for being with us. Now, former FBI Director Robert Mueller has passed away at the age of 81. Mueller is perhaps best remembered for leading the special counsel investigation into Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential election, a probe that cast a long shadow over President Trump's first term in office. He served as the director for the FBI for 12 years, beginning September 4, 2001, just 1 week before the September 11th terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center. Shortly after Mueller's death, President Trump posted on Truth Social saying, quote, "Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead and he can no longer hurt innocent people. President Donald J. Trump." The response sparked outrage from both sides of the political spectrum, with critics calling the remarks immoral and deeply inappropriate for a sitting president. Democratic Senator Adam Schiff posted on X, quote, "Every day this president shows his basic indecency and unfitness for office." In a text to Politico, Republican Representative Don Bacon said, quote, "It is clearly wrong and unchristian behavior, and the vast majority of Americans want better." While no cause of death was given, it's suspected that Mueller's death was related to complications with Parkinson's. Joining us now with more on the rising tensions in the Middle East is our correspondent, Stephen Ospina Delgado. Stephen, what updates can you share with us?
Good evening, Ava. Updates there are plenty. So first off, we know that coming into the 4th week of the Iran-U.S.-Israeli conflict, the war, we know that there's 3 main reasons that Trump wants to invade Iran. For one, there's uranium enrichment up to 60% in Iran. The U.S. wants it out of Iran. And President Trump's been asked how he plans to do that. And he has suggested that Americans would go in and seize it. Now, how he's going to do that, that is a question left unanswered, Ava. Number 2, the U.S. wants a complete stoppage of nuclear weapon production, the ballistic missile program to be specific, which is practically impossible for Iran. And number 3, they want a complete openness of the Strait of Hormuz. And that is, and I quote, number 1, 2, and 3, and that they will never have a nuclear weapon again. And according to the Parliament of according to the Iranian Parliament Speaker, he has claimed that this is fake news and that this is not going to happen. And they claim to say that it's aimed at influencing financial and oil markets. And Ava, we also seen reports of 4 other Iranian officials claiming that messages have actually been exchanged between Tehran and Washington to de-escalate the situation, though the messages fall short of being any true negotiations. And Iran maintains its hardline stance, preparing for a prolonged conflict to raise costs for the U.S. in the form of energy costs and casualties. So rising energy prices and inflation adding to political pressure is only making it worse for Donald Trump, just heating to the midterms.
And then could we potentially be seeing a resolution anytime soon?
Well, the mixed messaging between the U.S. and Iran makes it tough to tell. With President Trump claiming that the war is nearing an end and Iran's vows to fight to full victory, as they claim, it makes the timeline for resolution seemingly unclear. Quite frankly, the parties don't really trust each other, and we're talking about the United States, which doesn't shy to back out of agreements a day or two before coming to a supposed resolution.
And thank you for that update. Now it's time for sports, and March Madness is in full swing. For all the highlights and the upsets, we turn to our sports correspondent, Nikola Knezevich.
Thanks, guys. March Madness is in full swing, and the tournament is already delivering the chaos fans have come to expect. The bracket has seen some major surprises so far, but none bigger than 9-seed Iowa knocking out top seed and defending champions Florida, capped off by a 3-pointer in the final seconds of the game. The upset not only ends Florida's title defense, but also completely reshapes the South region of the bracket. Other title favorites are still holding strong though, as Houston dominated Texas A&M in their second-round matchup. That sets up a blockbuster 2v3 seed showdown against Illinois, with the winner now heavily favored to take the South region and reach the Final Four following Florida's early exit. Meanwhile, the top-seeded teams across regions remain in control. Arizona and Michigan have comfortably advanced through the tournament so far, while Duke found their footing in the second round and continues to look like a serious title contender. Now closer to home, St. John's has had quite the tournament so far, with wins over Northern Iowa and Kansas. They'll now face the heavily favored Duke in the next round on Friday in their first Sweet 16 appearance since 1999. But the game that stole the show this weekend was Nebraska's 74-72 win over Vanderbilt, which ended in dramatic fashion. Here are the last 20 seconds of one of the wildest finishes of this year's tournament. With the game tied, Vanderbilt's Chandler Bing had an open look but missed the floater to take the lead with 10 seconds remaining. Nebraska came down with the rebound and pushed up the court, and it was Braden Frager who attacked the rim and finished the layup with 2.2 seconds remaining to give Nebraska the lead. Vanderbilt used their last timeout, and out of the inbound, Tyler Tanner launched a desperation shot from half court, and it nearly dropped, going in and out at the buzzer. Vanderbilt is eliminated in heartbreaking fashion, while Nebraska advances to its first ever Sweet 16, where they'll face Iowa on Thursday. And so, with the Sweet 16 set, all eyes now turn to the next round, as teams fight for a spot in the Elite 8 and one step closer to the Final Four. That's it for this week's March Madness Roundup. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Nikola. Seawolves, it's our first week back from spring break, or in my case, my first day back. And to find out what students are up to, Connor Yiki has the story.
I went to Poconos in Pennsylvania with my cultural org, the JSO, and we did a lot of different things. They went shopping, we went snowboarding. We had a great time, and we played a few sports here and there, and then we played a lot of games, but yeah.
Mostly I worked. I worked my 2 jobs, and then I went to the city to go see my sister for a day. She goes to FIT. Other than that, homework.
Hanging out with my friends and going outside. Like, the weather was pretty nice, so I went to the park and went shopping and stuff.
I invited my friends over and over again, and we played a lot of board games.
I met up with some friends, hung out by the pier in St. Petersburg, and we just walked around for a bit.
To hear the latest in entertainment, we turn now to Ashley Choi.
Thanks, Ava. It's almost the end of March, but there seems to be no stopping what's going on in entertainment. Let's see what we have to look forward to. After almost half a decade, Marvel finally dropped the trailer for Spider-Man Brand New Day, the sequel to Spider-Man No Way Home. Based on what we can see, it focuses on the aftermath of everyone in the universe forgetting Peter Parker's identity, as well as a new awakening for Spider-Man's powers. I, for one, am hoping MJ and Nen regain their memories of Peter Parker. We still have to wait just a little longer until its release, however. with the movie coming to theaters July 31st. But in the meantime, video game lovers can look forward to the Super Mario Galaxy movie, which comes in just a week. The animated film will feature Mario and his allies defeating Bowser once more, with a new cast of characters such as Princess Rosalina, Birdo, Yoshi, and many others. I'm most excited for Yoshi since he was always my pick for playing Mario Kart on the Wii. Speaking of long-awaited returns, BTS released their album Arirang. This is the group's first album after all members finished their mandatory enlistment, making it 4 years since their last group album. They premiered their first concert in Seoul, marking the return as the comeback of the century. Their concert was hosted at Gwanghwamun Square in Seoul, South Korea, and was streamed on Netflix. This marks BTS as the first ever standalone concert in South Korean history to perform at this historic landmark. They've also announced a global world tour through April and goes all the way through 2027. With more areas to be announced, they are also coming to MetLife, so be sure to be on the lookout for those tickets if you're a fan. That's all from me. Back to you at the desk.
That's all for this edition of Eyewitness News. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ava Shea.